Who is the Associate Artistic Director of the company. Lauren met with Palette. And this is Dora Amelan, who is the Creative Director and Associate Creative Director of the company. And set designer. And set designer.
It takes a little while to talk after seeing that, I have to say. I mean, it's the second time, but it's incredibly powerful. So there's so many moments to me that become central in watching that. One is that moment when Dora says that she has been having to choose between the children and the adults, and you say collaboration, and she says no, cooperation.
Yes.
Which by the way is the same debate, I don't know how much you know it, that Arendt has with people. She refuses to use the word collaboration. She says the Jews cooperated, and that makes a big difference for her.
You know, when I asked her that question, I think I should have known that collaboration is a hot button issue, but I was just in a conversation with her and trying to clarify. You know.
You're speaking English?
Yeah,
she's speaking French?
Yes, but you know, sometimes words are different.
First, Dora is my mother. She speaks English fluently, so the discussion was in French. In English, sorry. But in French, the word collaborateur, in the context of World War II, meant the people who actively were on the Nazi side, supporting the regime. And so, when Mother hears in that context the word collaborator, she does not hear the cut and dry word for its meaning of collaboration or helping or cooperation. She makes that nuance because she will not, and she should not, be accused of being a collaborator.
And that moment goes with two others where, I forget the exact words that were used, but you talk about the mystery, the difference between her sister and herself, and she describes it as the mystery of something, I forget.
Well, she did say, she says a number of things. She says that she had a bit of insouciance,
right.
Lightness of spirit, carefree, and she said, I too had that.
Right.
That's how I've been able to deal with what I've been able to deal with. Is that what you meant? Or?
Yes, it was that moment, and then later, shortly after that, she says something about the mystery of the difference, and it struck me as the question. It's the question that our classes have been discussing all semester, which is what makes some people stand up and resist, and others do not.
What was that line? A person 50 years from now? You know the line?
For someone like me sitting here some 50 years later, the question is, how could you both be so different in your responses to what was going on?
And she says something about the mystery. But it just struck me that is the question that so many of us are struggling with. And then at the end, Dora says, people don't change. And this is something that, at least in my class, and I think many of the classes keep coming up against, which is when we ask what makes people stand up and resist, the answer seems to be not some rules, some laws, some belief, but simply, as many of them put it, who they were. They couldn't do otherwise. Which is a question of character. And so this has been driving us, and I guess we keep asking, well, does thinking about it, does studying it, does wondering about it make it more likely that someone would stand up? And I almost wanted to ask the actors, does performing this in your minds, I mean, is there a hope? Is there a thought? Are we thinking about ourselves in this or not? Is that a fair question?
I don't know, does anyone want to take it on? Probably more them, but anybody want to talk about that question? I mean, doing a piece, is it an act of hopefulness, or what is their relationship to the piece?
Well, are you asking if art is a stand-in for activism?
I'm not asking if art is a stand-in for activism. I'm asking is, having done this immensely emotional and thoughtful piece, is the thought that in thinking about it and performing it, and maybe people watching it, is it going to impact people? Or is it just, not just, but is it a stand-in for activism? I don't know if I'm not asking that. I'm asking, how does it affect you to perform it? And then, is there a hope, and maybe the answer is no, that it would affect people in a way who see it? Do you have a hope that people will be affected in seeing it?
Anybody want to say something? I have a very complicated response to it.
Yeah, I think that people that come out and stand up, like aren't able to do that out of the blue. Like I imagine that if it's character, then character is something that's built over a lifetime, that their lifetime has prepared them in ways that they were aware of, in ways that they weren't aware of, for the moments where they were able to make choices, and that the different ways that culture influenced them as they were growing up, their family culture, the culture around them, had a lot to do with building the character that they had. So for me, I would hope in doing this piece that it's, for me and for an audience, that it's a piece, it's a moment of immersion in a story, which is part of culture, that is character building, that relating closely to this woman that acted bravely is like strengthening those parts of myself that would then be able to do something like that.
I think for me, all of her stories, so many of them are about these daily not even daily, these like acts that happen in like a moment, a minute, these like small little things that she did that were acts of kindness and generosity and caretaking. And it was all happening in this devastating time, but really it was each of those small moments where she chose to try to act in service of helping people instead of saving herself or only thinking about herself or whatever, and that those add up over a longer period of time. And so in my own life, just thinking, even if I'm not doing something hugely heroic, like I'm not going to help women in need or children in need or whatever, like, can I do small acts of kindness throughout my day, or attempt, not good at it, perfect at it yet, but attempt to treat everyone every day the way Dora might in her stories.
And in my role in analogy, I play Bill, and to have to look at whoever's playing Dora and listen to her tell these stories that are just, very touching and sometimes and very disturbing in others, I have to practice compassion, and I have to practice how can you truly hear a story that you can't change the past, whatever you say won't change the future, but to have an open heart and just listen is something I've learned from this.
Yes, this one, Jill?
There have been a lot of, as you were asking your question, I was thinking about all of the marches and riots, but marches that have been, organized marches that have been going on in New York City. And we've been rehearsing this piece during a lot of them. And I had to ask myself the question, because I feel so strongly about what's going on. Do I just want to post on Facebook and Instagram, or do I want to, what can I do? I have a 10 to 6 job, but the march starts at 6. I can lend my feet, my body, my support in that way, be active in that way. So.
I have it's a complicated response. The first is to take that question the other way around. As I understand, when you want to make somebody a torturer, you have a group of them, And you give them every day a little thing to do. And this one will go a little further, and you a little bit further, and after a while you have a full-blooded sadistic killer. You systematically made them. I think that's what I'm hearing is how you make heroes as well, right? Now, doing this piece, you realize that I made that statement about being a formalist. It's a bit defensive. Because when I came into the art world in the 70s, it was the time of minimalism. It was extreme aesthetics, extreme formalism. If you want to do politics, go run for office, quote, right? And so my nature is expressionistic, and I guess I am angry as hell. It's trying to understand how to deal with it. Like I said the other day in your group, I'm still angry about slavery. And yet we're supposed to now be moving past that. So the work that I'm making is being made for a time when everybody has now, and I'm going to say this without, it's fashionable now to be socially engaged. I'd say that it is your generation now. If I go back 30 years and see you 30 years ago, it would have been doing what Trisha Brown was doing, what Merce was doing, what have you. Because that's what it was, coming out of counterculture. Now, who will be around in 30 years? Those persons who are out in the street wanting social change. And do you really believe in social change? See, I don't know, I'm kind of, as angry as I am, I'm a crusty son of a bitch. I don't really know. I have a problem. Because I started out thinking that I knew what was right. One thing middle age does to you is that everything that you held, that you believed once, is now up in the air. And that's why you young folks are always saying, you old fuckers. you don't stand for anything. Because quite frankly, you catch us with our pants down. We were you once. But there's this thing about experience that slaps you backwards and forwards, and it takes a hell of a lot of, what is that word, character, which scares me so much? Yeah, character. It takes character. It takes being born to the right people, being born in the right place, that you can learn how to be a compassionate human being. Teach your children well. Now, all of you young, there's some breeders in this room, I can tell, right? Yeah. Do you know what the deal is when you have children? Are you going to make them, how do you, and Dora says to us, no child ever learns by being talked to, by being lectured. You must show them the example. Now that's my response. I am making this work to satisfy my artistic desires, but behind it I'm also trying to make a work that might be like in the black church, when somebody stands up and say, yes, I have a problem. I say to the community, I am weak, I want to be strong. And somebody in the community says, amen, I hear you. And that's why the black church has been a political organ. Literally, it starts there. Now, what's your church? Right? And those of you who are breeding and having children, what is the creed that you will demonstrate every day?
Just two remarks tangential. Mother says a couple of provocative things, as Bill and I recorded her on the subject. One of them is that she thinks that people are, well, I beg to differ with what Tali said, and not just because education is essential, and yet we see that she and her 1 year younger sister, equally loved, equally raised in the same situation, chose two radically different paths. And that connects with something else that she says, which is that she believes that certain people are born predisposed to fascism, to fascistic opinion. And so, by extension, certain people are literally genetically predisposed to right, far right wing, or the opposite, by deduction, opinions. So the old debate of Hobbes and Locke's tabula rasa or formed and shaped is up in the air, I think, and I think she has opinions that might differ greatly from actually our education, enlightenment through education and all possibilities to young people who are showing the right thing, questions.
What was Hannah Arendt's ideas about this idea of, what Dora is saying, she thinks some people are born predisposed to fascism. What did Hannah Arendt think about that?
Well, I don't think she thought people were born predisposed to fascism in sort of a genetic way. I'm not sure if that's what your mom meant or not, but she did think that it was easier for some people than others. She uses the example of one of her teachers, Karl Jaspers, who she praises later in life, and says he was an important person, not just for her, but for the whole of Germany, because everybody knew that as long as he was alive, there was one person alive in Germany who could not only collaborate, but cooperate. And that for her was the great statement of someone. That was for her. And like you said, it was examples. The other person is Socrates, right? That Jaspers and Socrates are the only two people she ever actually says were people who could not do otherwise. And remember, Socrates was accused of betraying his family by going to death. Just like Dora's cousin says to her, right?
It's your fault.
It's your fault. You should have stayed with your family. And all I can think of when I'm watching that is, that's what my mother would have said, right? My mother has always told us, you take care of your family before everything else. And she's a Holocaust generation, right? I mean, that was, and I think that that's why this place is so rich for so many reasons for me. But for Arendt, yes, it's what the reason that people are predisposed to cooperate or collaborate or be fascist is because they are habituated into getting along and not thinking step by step by step. And it's the people who constantly...
In other words, as Hannah Arendt says, they don't think.
Well, and that's too simple, and we have to dig into that.
Right.
But it's the people who constantly ask themselves, could I live with myself if I did that? Now, I don't know if that's what... I mean, one of the things that Dora says in this piece is, I didn't think very much. I didn't have time to stop and think. Which, in my class, we've been reading lots and lots of stories of people who resist, and that's one of the things that comes up over and over again. I just did it. I didn't think about it. There's this man, Acu, in Yugoslavia. He was a Serb, and he was told to pick the Croatians out so they could kill him. And he started calling all the Croatians by Serbian names and saved 100 Croatians. He could have been killed right there. And people thought, oh my God, who is this guy? He must be some smart, ethical philosopher. He was an uneducated person who grew up with his parents, married a Croat, and simply said, I just did it out of instinct, and I couldn't do otherwise. And the idea that it's not the educated, it's not the people who are good at reasoning that end up often being the brave, I don't like to use the word brave, the courageous, hard. Because it comes from the heart, it comes from the self. And I think heart and courage is a more important word than character. We use the word character, but it's heart and courage.
Remember that in the next election, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any, if anybody out
We
there...
have time for one or two, maybe I'll take two questions and then let people answer them from students, if I could. If there's student questions. There's one in there.
Yes, sir.
Is there a mic for them, or do you want to come down?
I'll speak louder.
No, because we're recording it, so I'd like
Maybe you can take one of those to the stage.
Is there one other student who'd like to ask a question? We have one here.
My question is, since you're talking about courage, character, and heart, something I noticed in the movement is that there are moments of unison when there's groups, and then there are particulars, like universals and particulars when there's like narrative and movement. So this is more towards the movers, because I just wanted to understand, how do you negotiate when you're narrating as opposed to when you're part of the bigger group, when you're in unison, when you're moving, and when you're narrating.
Great. And we'll take one more question and then let answer.
Who will answer that?
Or two. Should we, you want to take two at once and then answer, or do you want to do it now? Let's do it, okay.
Well, for me, Bill has created this landscape that hills and valleys through the entire work. And as a performer, it's my job to know when I am the interviewer, whether I am a part of this community, whether I am her brother, someone's uncle, it's my job to delegate in the script who I am, what am I doing, what's my focus and my intention and where I stand.
Do you change chemically when you go from one role to another?
Yeah, when there's another bill, I take myself out of that and I make myself just a vessel for the movement or the story. Totally.
Where's Emma? What did you say to me the other night about what your work was about? You want to dig into what, did you say?
My work was digging into memory and improvisation is accessing the nervous system. How to move, giving choreographed movement, also how to think about it in a way, each movement kind of reacting throughout the body through personal memory, through personal experience, through language, and the other. So it is the self, but identifying with perhaps a friend, a relationship, a memory, personal or someone else's.
So you want to empower your performers to actually be able to do that from their experience,
Yep.
as opposed to what I've done is actually give them the experience of a 95-year-old Jewish woman, right? And then they're supposed to go back and forth from doing very particular and oftentimes virtuosic movement to being smack dab in the middle of a testimony that, so what do you think of that?
I think it's a really interesting challenge, adapting to the present moment always and what you're relating movement to, whether it's to the story or to your own sense in that moment, in that particular second of the dance piece. Yeah, huge challenge.
I just wanted to say, Emily, I think that's really beautiful that you allow your dancers to do that. It's really powerful.
Hey, first of all, thanks so much for coming here and doing this for us. This is really awesome. And I was just wondering, what compelled you to tell this story right now? What makes this resonant for you now? And you said that this piece is analogy, and you're still figuring out what that means. I'm just interested for anybody in the production, what are some...
Well, I'm the prime mover. Right, that's what it means to be, I don't know about you all believe in a horizontal world. I still am stuck in a world that has agency and responsibility, and then you organize in that way. So this might be an alien concept to you, but I had the idea that I wanted to continue making work with this company. So I had aesthetic and formal desires. Can I make an ensemble that can dance and sing and act? What is the project? Elaine asked me when we were doing a review, and she said, well, Bill, we're all wondering what's your interest. And I said, my interest is more and more literary. But I didn't want to go off and do a play. I didn't want to go off and just read again a book for myself. I wanted to see if my interest could, in fact, move this organization forward. The story comes from a woman who I love, who is his mother, who has adopted me as her third son. She's 95. I don't know how many more springs she's going to be around, and I wanted to do something that was very close as she and I sitting over dinner and having a glass of wine. But it couldn't stop there. It had to be part of my community, or, if you will, the sublime materials that are the computer out of which works come. Now, why are they doing it with me? If that's your question, now that's another question. They are professional artists, and this is, in one way, their job. Now, I hope it's more than that, but that's our contract, and we have that idea. This is what we are doing. This is what I will give to you, and this is what you will give to me.
Why did you ask that?
Yeah, why do you ask the question?
I was just interested in what some of the performers and you creating the work were thinking about as an analogy, and what compelled you, just as I said, what compelled you to tell this story now. Obviously, it's related to a woman you have a deep relationship with,
And also,
but it's not
what
just-
Shay was saying about the time we live in right now.
And you were talking a little bit about what's going on right now in regards with protests over killings and all kinds of things, and I'm just wondering how that intersects with.
Can I add to that? I guess I've been wondering this whole time whether I did a disservice or an aggressive act in asking you to come and speak and present this piece in an arena in which we're talking about courage. Because I imposed that, you know, in some way, and I'm wondering if courage was at the heart of your interests when you began, or is that something that we brought to it because of our interest?
Courage is a big part of my life. I've said for years, as a man of my description, we are bred to be suspicious and skeptical. I will not allow myself to be cynical. The world does not give a fuck about me. It does not need another hungry, egomaniacal artist. And they let you know regularly they do not. The way I see the world, because I don't live in a world like this, is that I've got to do whatever I can to get the attention of the world so that I can have resources for myself and those I love, and that we can have voice and agency, because as I say, I come from people who had no voice and agency. And it took courage to even love. And I've often loved people who are not my color. So courage has been at the center of my life since my mother's tit. What about you? What are you pushing against? Is this your world? Do you feel this world wants you?
I would like to live in a world where we can start a lot of the conversations that it seems like we're having from a more honest perspective and from a place of, perhaps, as you would say, the heart, because I feel like a lot of the issues that we're dealing with right now in our country and in this world and as a society would seem a lot less daunting if we could actually look each other eye to eye, as someone was saying yesterday.
Frank O'Hara says the only truth is face to face.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of our problems might seem a lot less daunting if we were able to have a conversation where we actually look each other in the eye.
Okay. I can let you go. But I won't. You said, I would like to live in a world. The aspiration is always a good one, you know, because you don't have to own anything, right? What kind of world do you live in?
I feel like I don't live in that world so much.
What world do you live in?
What world do I live in?
Yeah.
I live in a world I have difficulty understanding, where it seems like a lot of people aren't very interested in listening to each other or having genuine conversations or empathizing with other people, being able to see things from other people's perspective, and that disappoints me.
Are you talking about the Bard world or your?
No, I'm just speaking very, very generally about my experiences.
Speak more specifically, though.
Be more specific.
Okay. Well, you know, when I was a little kid, my friends weren't on iPhones all the time.
They were or were
They
not?
were not.
They were not.
They were not. And now it's I feel like it's harder to talk to people. And that's something that I've seen just a little bit in my very, very short years here on this earth, is that it seems like it's already getting harder to talk to people honestly. And that's something that scares me. And I'm trying to figure it out and figure out how I can fight against that.
But what you've just done today, you've demonstrated leadership. You demonstrated leadership because you stood up and you engaged us. And when we even asked you to be specific, you showed courage. You went, you took a chance. You'll have to deal with your friends, and you'll have to deal with your feelings afterwards. But in the moment, in public, you showed leadership. That's what leadership is. Maya Angelou was a friend of ours. She said, if you want hope, you already have it. And what I heard you say is that I want hope. Now, the part that I added, it may appear and bite you in the ass. So with hope comes the demand that you be agile and brave. So my brother, thank you for being a leader. We're out of time.
Out of time. I want to thank Bill T. Jones and the whole company for presenting with courage and honesty, as they always do, an incredibly moving and thought-provoking and beautiful work. Thank you very
We're
much.
going to be premiering the piece at Peak Performances at Montclair on June 18th, and we're running for how many performances?
4.
4 performances. So if you want to see it, and also this Saturday we're doing a showing of the next section, which is, I told you, Analogy, Lance, Pretty, also known as the escape artist. And this is not a person who is naturally brave. This is not about that person. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you all.